Hi everyone, welcome back to 2021. I'm Tom, and I'm going to talk about some more games now. 10 more games that were my favourites of 2020 that didn't quite make the top 10, but really, for me anyway, it was a really tough list to make. And yeah, they are still absolutely incredible games, despite being in the more 10 greatest things. Hey, being in the 20 great. Usual things that I said at the beginning of the first video that, hey, these are the games that I don't have, and these are the games that I haven't played enough yet. Golem is a great big meaty euro, on the heavy side, designed by Flaminia Brasini, Virginio Gili, and Simone Luciani, published by Cronio Creations. In this game, we are making golems and trying to stop them wreaking havoc, basically. It is based on a 16th century legend in Prague, and this kind of Euro games it, using the magic of a marble tower. So marbles were used as an action selection mechanism in Masters of Renaissance, the Lorenzo Il Magnifico card game, and here marbles are used incredibly effectively in a different way for action selection as well. You drop them into a dice tower. Well, it's a marble tower, and the rows that the marbles run into determine the strength of certain actions that you will get. The colour of the marble can give you different benefits at the end of the round, or can move your particular students around the streets, which will help keeping control of your golems. You might be able to activate your golems, and that depends on where they stand in the streets. You might have to pay knowledge for them at the end of the round if they've moved ahead of your students and are out of control. There are various different kind of, not really mini games, but different working areas of your player board. You are collecting various colours of books. Collecting loads of different colours will help you with scoring, but collecting the same colours every time you collect a book, all of your books of that colour will activate, so you can get great big stacks of bonuses from stacking them. You can upgrade your kind of main golem on your player board and get various benefits relating to your golems, free movement, free activations, all that kind of stuff. You can put more golems out onto the board, so you have more options when activating them because they'll be on different spaces. You can buy these expensive artifacts that are a kind of engine building thing, will provide you with more and more income at the end of the round, and maybe will activate if you get certain upgrades when you take particular actions. There's just so much going on in this, but it comes together so beautifully. It is a really thinky, heavy experience, but really satisfying and rewarding as well. It has got a solo mode in it. I think that it's still a great way of playing it on your own, but the way that it decides actions and scores can be a little bit wonky. Might need the difficulty turning it up in it, but I say that as kind of an inexperienced soloer anyway. Yeah, just as a game itself, I thoroughly enjoyed Golem, and it's definitely a keeper for me. Rolling Realms, designed, I think, during the lockdown by Jamie Stegmaier and published by Stonemaier Games, is a roll and write game, which is a love letter to Stonemaier Games, basically. You have all of these various realms that you'll be playing with, 3 per round, and they are randomly determined. Everyone will have the same one, so someone shuffles up theirs, it draws 3, everybody has those realms to play with. Each realm represents a Stonemaier board game, and incorporate various ways of playing lovely roll and writey things. So, starts, you have this great big, you have this grid that you can put numbers in. You can't put the same number next to each other. You can put a number at the top and get a little reward for it, or you can put your number in the bottom and get a reward for every number like that you put at the top. There are so many different kind of flavors, different elements put into this that combine in various ways and will influence how you want to play. And they are all kind of evocative of the games that they are referencing as well. There is the Tapestry one that has you filling in various parts of a larger grid, just like when you place the buildings on your player board in Tapestry. I think it can be appreciated just as a roll and write game, just as a standalone thing on its own. It works fantastically well, but I think if you are experienced and particularly a fan of these Stonemaier games that are being referenced, hey, I want to see Euphoria referenced anywhere. Yeah, for me, because of that, it's got kind of an extra element of enjoyment to it as well. It's got a solo mini golf mode where you are told to play with different configurations and maybe some restrictions, and you're given a par, a target score to try and get with there, which is a great extra as well. But just as a kind of play along roll and write. I think you can play. No, I haven't done a multiplayer one yet. Maybe we should do a play along one in the new year at some point, because yeah, Rolling Realms is absolutely fantastic. You can see a playthrough I did for a few holes of the solo mini golf there. Yeah, highly recommended. Rolling Realms. The Rival Networks is a 2-player only re-implementation, reimagining spin-off of the Networks by designer Gil Hova and published by Formal Ferret Games. This is a head-to-head, as you would expect from a 2-player version. You are taking the artwork, the feel, the theme, the punny nature of the Networks, of which you can see a couple of playthroughs already on the channel, and one for the Rival Networks actually. Check that one out if you want to know about the game that I'm actually talking about. But yes, this is a head-to-head thing. We are directly competing against different time slots. We will get various rewards for winning particular ones set out in the end of season awards that we can see on the table. We are still getting ads and stars to appear in our shows and earn us some money. There's a trade-off in the kind of ads that you get. Some will be more powerful at certain times. It manages to turn that competition, as I say, into a kind of direct head-to-head without adding, save for I think like one card that's in the special powers that you can buy, aside from like one card, without doing any kind of direct conflict or any kind of take that stuff. And I think even there it's like take a star from someone else and they get to draw a star. So yeah, it's mild in that sense, but yeah, it's fantastic for bringing you that kind of direct competition, that focused 2-player gameplay. You accumulate viewers, which is the whole purpose of all of the network games. You want the most viewers on things, but it has a really nice extra component thing as well, where your viewers are these chips, these tokens that you will gain throughout the game, and you have a piggy bank basically. You have this 3D cardboard house that you slot your viewers in, and then at the end of the game you get to lift them up and reveal them all spilling out and count who won, having a bit of mystery as to the scores that you're getting. You've got some inkling from you being there and seeing the game being played, but yeah, as a kind of shiny component, as a kind of gimmick of gameplay, it works really, really nicely, and I wish more games would have something like that. Who doesn't want a piggy bank? Anyway, if you're a big Networks fan like me, absolutely check out the Rival Networks, and I suppose if you're a 2-player gamer, but also, yeah, any of the Network games are well worth checking out, and I believe there is more on the horizon in a future year, probably next year, right? Hey, that'll be fantastic. Always want to see more Networks. It's like one of the first games I ever did a video for. Still got that, still holding a torch for it, still going on strong, still hitting the table when I shouldn't be. Rival Networks. Cascadia is a beautiful, puzzly animal tile laying game designed by Randy Flynn and published by Flat Out Games. You can see a couple of playthroughs I've done for Cascadia over time. But yes, in this game, there is a display of animals and hexes. You have to take a pair of these things. Little asterisk, you can sometimes change that if you spend things, but you are building up an area of these hexes. You want to match types of terrain for big points at the end of the game, but based on the cards that have come out of the types of animals, there are loads of different ways of scoring for each one. Based on the scoring criteria for your game, you want to arrange the animals in a particular way, like salmon being in a great big line, like some animals just wanting to be in pairs, so don't put 3 next to each other because then they won't score anything. Loads of different things, putting eagles in sight of other eagles, and loads of interesting, cool ideas that will make you play in different ways and influence the things you want to get. You're trying to match up these types of terrain. Different tiles will have different animals that are able to be placed on them as well. So that's going to make a difference to where you want things to try and balance out the scoring that you're going for. It's got loads of fantastic scenarios. There is a great solo way of playing, which is basically just taking options away. After you've chosen one, something else goes away at the end of it. But it's really effective for playing a kind of a game running at peak efficiency. It is absolutely fantastic and part of a pretty amazing trilogy at this point with Calico and the upcoming Verdant. Bad Company is a game of criminals and heists and stuff, and dice, by Kenneth Minder, Alice Svensson and Christian Amund Otsby, and this published by Aporta Games. This is for lack of an actual term for it, a Magic Horror kind of game where dice will be rolled on every player's turn and everyone will get something out of that dice. We have a team, or a heist team of criminals that we are in charge of, and based on the number that we want to activate, they will give us different resources, different abilities, different things to place on our player boards. We are trying to fill in. It's kind of a mix between like Magic Horror and Augustus. If you have played that you want these kind of things to place tokens, these completed tokens, on these kind of bingo cards that you've got. You want to fill in all the spaces to get the rewards of that card, then you can get another card to fill in that will give you points and things throughout the game. There is also an element of wanting to escape the police. The police are chasing after all of us. We have our cars out on the board and we are trying to make progress along these tracks to evade that. So if the police go past bonuses before us, we're not going to get those bonuses. So we want to keep one step ahead of the police, as you would as a heister. Is that a word? You can also upgrade your characters as well. You can stack upgrades so that if one number comes out, you are going to get a ton of stuff from it, or you can kind of hedge your bets and upgrade everyone a little bit so you will get more things no matter what's rolled. And there is an extra incentive to do that because you only get the points on the top card, so if you spread out loads of upgrade cards, you get loads of points for it as well. There is a fantastic solo mode included. It is very snappy because loads of the multiplayer game can happen simultaneously. It's got a lovely art style and sense of humor to it as well. It's just it just sings. It works beautifully well, and yeah, there'll be a playthrough for it hopefully very, very soon. Bad Company. Imperium. And I'm doing one entry here for Classics Stroke Legends. They are two different boxes that are the same game system, but in Imperium you are playing as a civilization that has its own quirks, its own deck of cards, its own way of playing at various complexities. Classics and Legends include their own sets of these civilizations, but either one is the core game, and you can buy both if you like and mix and match and play against them. It's designed by Nigel Buckle and David Turtzi and published by Osprey Games, and I played through this. I think you can see like 3 playthroughs of this on the channel, including one where I play against David Turtzi. So this is another example of doing deck building in a new and interesting way. You do start out with, the same deck if you're playing the same civilization. As I kind of said at the beginning, these civilizations play very, very differently, have their own kind of wants. As you get into the more complex civilizations, have completely different ways of playing that they don't do this normal thing. They've got this whole thing, the Arthurians are going after the Holy Grail and that kind of thing. But just speaking as the easier ones, they have a certain inclination towards exploration or domination and that kind of thing, and you will be recruiting cards to help that kind of goal. You have this end game thing, but as you get more cards, they will have their own end game scoring on them, and hopefully you get things that kind of work together nicely, that maybe you don't want to let the person that does combat take a load of combat cards and just have control over all that. Maybe you want to get involved in that yourself as well. I should say as well that I'm only talking from a solo perspective, really, because, as I've said in other entries, I think player versus player combat isn't really my thing. Although, as you can see actually in the playthrough against David, where he talks about this, the actual conflicts, you aren't just taking things from people. There is generally a lot of warning. You can see what the other person has ready and is doing, and generally they're putting cards back that you've put out, that kind of thing. It is mild in the scale of things, but still, I'm speaking from a solo perspective, and the solo in this game is just absolutely fantastic. The civilizations themselves are tuned and created so that they are giving off a feel of the civilization that they are representing, but so too are the AI bots. They have these kind of tables. Basically, they work in a very simple way, that they have this display of cards out. One card might not happen every turn, and you can play on different difficulties, and they will do more cards in a turn. But they play their cards, and based on what the card is, cards they will have accumulated will end up in this display at some point as well. But you look for a certain symbol on the card, match it up to a table, wait till you found a match, then read what they do, And these AI tables, effectively, are trying to replicate the way that a player playing that civilization would play. So while they aren't necessarily just building up these cards and that you can see from the card text what they're going to do, you can see from the table what they might do, and you can see, you know, which icons they are likely to go for. And it's just such an effective thing. David's solo variants all try and replicate playing against an actual player as much as is possible. And yeah, Nigel and David have, I think, as I have to kind of imagine, just from the perspective of me playing that civilization and then playing against that civilization as controlled by the AI bot, I think it does an absolutely fantastic job, better than probably most solo variants at replicating that with, you know, such a low kind of overhead of knowledge of what they are going to do. Even with one box of Imperium, it comes with, like, it's 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, 8 civilizations per box. Just with one of those boxes, the very different ways that the civilizations play themselves and the goals that they have, as well as the core cards that each set comes with. Each set comes with a different set of core cards to, you know, tailored to the civilizations that are in that box, but you can play with either or and change the experience up as well. But yeah, even just with one of those boxes, those 8 combinations of different civilizations to be, especially for the solo player, make for such a kind of wide experience. Combined with a whole nother box of them, it's just enormous. If you play either Imperium and enjoy it, there is a whole wealth just in these boxes. And yeah, maybe there'll be more in the future. You know, more civilizations, more stuff. But just as there is, it's a meaty game. It's a long game as well, but it's very deep and rewarding and so different every time as well. Imperium Classics and Legends. Squaring Circleville, designed by Matt Wolf and published by Spielworks, is a game all about squaring Circleville. So, there is a place, Circleville, Ohio, Squareville, well, it is now, Circleville, Ohio, that was built on this great big earthwork, and so they decided, let's make the city round, let's do these concentric circular streets and build around that. At some point, they decided they didn't want that anymore, and so the Squaring Circleville company was created to turn it into, you know, a grid system, more like a lot of American cities. So we are taking on that role. Unfortunately, in some ways, I want to circle it again. Let's do a sequel where we circle it. I think I said that in the first impressions as well, just repeating everything I've ever said. But yes, we are doing this through a load of kind of miniature area control things. There are loads of different sections of Circleville that need the old roads destroying, new ones building, the old buildings taken apart, and then rebuilt when the area is completed. There are loads of bonuses available. There is majority scoring for whoever did the most at deconstructing the area. Then the area is completed. The person who did the most gets a little cube, a little influence in that area to start us with. And then as we build new buildings, improve them, beautify the area, we can start to get influence over the quadrant as a larger piece. And it's those majorities that will award us points at the end of the game as well. There are achievements that you can get that will give you specific scoring criteria to you. There's equipment that you can get that will let you bend various rules of the game. You're limited to, you know, 3 of these at a time, but a different set will be out in each game, which will make for a very different experience. It is another example of board games kind of introducing me to kind of a strange bit of history that I was completely unaware of, and then making a really effective, really smooth Euro game based on that kind of event, turning that event into a really interesting system. I think it works beautifully well. You can see me do a full solo playthrough of it. Solo works particularly well too, because I've only played it solo. It works really well because it's got these bots with different behaviors that you can play against for different experiences, but you can combine up to 3 bots. So you could play potentially a 4-player game against 3 of these bots and try and replicate, because, you know, area majority always better with more people, isn't it, really? So in a 2-player game as well, actually, the designer did comment on my playthrough that it reminded me you can include a bot in a 2-player game as well to tighten things up in there. So I've only played, I did 3-player in that playthrough, but yeah, I imagine that the bots as well aren't that much overhead to keep up. They do behave in different ways, and so there's a little bit at the beginning of getting their little quirks down, but as soon as you do that, their turns, you can see in the playthrough, so snappy, so easy to do, but what they are doing out on the board will replicate what a player might be doing. It works really, really well. A very unique theme, but also, you know, a unique game that is very much tied to that theme as well. Videos are available for you to, well, my videos, there are other videos, but hey, my videos are out for them, particularly Squaring Circleville. Witchstone is designed by Rainer Knizia and Martino Chiachira and published by Hooch and R&R Games. This is a Eurogame of several different parts all coming together to make a lovely point salad-y, maybe, dare I say, a bit of a classic Stefan Feldy-feely game, but with its own unique elements too. We have these cauldrons. We are placing tiles in these cauldrons to take our actions. We are trying to get like symbols next to each other so that those actions will be more and more powerful. And you are exploring the board, you are navigating it, performing these connections, placing your witches there. You're getting scrolls that will give you more powerful actions or might give you endgame scoring. You're putting these pots out for bonuses and hopefully scoring for them later. You are going round and round in a circle, getting bonus points and extra actions as you go along. You can either turn in tokens for just a big extra action now, or you can get to put it in your cauldron so that every time you put a like symbol next to it in the future, it's gotten that much more powerful, and the power of those things in your cauldron can tie to scoring you're getting from those scrolls as well. Just another kind of another medium weight Euro that is, you know, not much to get into. You just learn how these different things work. The action selection is simple and satisfying. You know, you have a hand of like 5 tiles that you choose from. Everyone has the same, but you shuffle them all up, have 5 behind you in a screen and place 1 every turn. So you are guided a bit by, you know, the state of the board and what the other people are doing, but by the things that you can build up on. You want to try and be really effective at certain things. I did a full 2-player playthrough for it. You can see it in action there, but yeah, I think it is absolutely fantastic. Witchstone. Lions of Lydia is designed by Johnny Pack and published by Bellwether Games. This is a game all about, you know, the Kingdom of Lydia has invented coins. So we have these merchants in our bags. We always have 4 meeples in our bag. You pull one out and that's your colour that you're going to be using. You can send your meeple to one of the 4 corners of Lydia, these different coloured gates. Placing your workers there will get you resources. There are 4 different colours of resource that you have on your player board, and for every meeple that is there of that colour, you will get one of that resource. If there are pairs of meeples there, you've probably had a good payday, but they will go back into the middle. You can place meeples in the middle to build buildings around the outside. The buildings will give you maybe point scoring opportunities, will let you trade resources into other things, will earn you more resources when you go to particular gates or put particular colours of meeples out, and there you can upgrade all of your buildings as well instead of building new ones, and upgrading them will get you more points and better abilities as well. On top of just the base game, there are so many kind of mini expansions included in the box that just make the game more complex for sure. It's on the lighter side to begin with, but yeah, more satisfying, giving you more options, giving you like an extra meeple that is just by your board, that, you know, if you don't like the one you draw from your bag, here's this one that you can use instead. Put the one you drew back down there, and that's kind of your backup one in the future. You can get special things that you can buy from 2 different areas of the board instead of being restricted to one. There's so many different things that are added in there. I did a playthrough of the base game with, I think, 2 or 3 expansions included. There's just so many combinations and so many cool things just in this little box. I think it works fantastically well. Lions of Lydia. The Loop, designed by Maxime Rambourg and Theo Riviere. It's published by Catch Up Games, and Pandasaurus Games is on mine as well. But this is a cooperative time travel game where we are trying to defeat a nefarious villain and all of his clones. Dr. Foe has kind of distributed his clones throughout time and he's got bad intentions. We are going to have to use all of our special powers and our cards, our special abilities, to follow him through time and stop him for good, basically. We have a board with all of these different eras of time. We are placed in those different eras at the start of the game. And on our turn, we are going to move between these areas and play our cards. We all have specific hands to start the game with, specific little decks that we will shuffle up, but we will gain cards throughout it and kind of customize what we want to do. We'll be playing cards to give us energy to allow us, or maybe the other players later on, to do more actions when they're in that zone. We are trying to defeat the red cubes that will kind of spell our doom if they're allowed to build up too much. How they're distributed is really cool, by the way. There's a lovely little spout in the middle that represents kind of Dr. Foe and which era of time he is manipulating. He will manipulate. There's a deck with all of the eras in it, and he'll do one at a time. So once one's come out, you know that he's not going to do there again until we shuffle all of that up. But it's funnel, basically. There are 3 spouts at the end of it, and so based on what's on the card and how many clones are in the era that he's pointing at, you get that many red cubes and drop them through the spout, and it's randomly determined if it's going to go in the era that he's aiming for or the one before or after it. If more than 3 build up in an area, then we get an anomaly, and all of our progress in that area is lost, and we won't get cards there again, and it's terrible. It can happen right before you complete a thing. It's terrible. But yeah, so we want to avoid that. We want to stop those cubes building up, and you have powers that allow other people to move and other people to play cards as well. A key thing in it is looping. So you play your cards and exhaust them once per, but you can loop. And this is spending energy, increasing amounts of energy each time, to refresh all of your cards with a particular symbol on them. So there is a deck building is a great system anyway, but there is a unique element to this deck building, that it's not just about the powers that you hope will help you next time they go on top of your deck when you gain cards. It's also about trying to stack certain symbols of cards so that when you loop and pay the energy, first time you loop, it's 1 energy to refresh everything with that symbol on, then it's 2 energy, 3 energy, 4 energy, increasing amounts, and it's going to be unlikely that there's all that to spend on there. But yes, if you can afford to loop, you reset all of the cards of that symbol, so you can be really, really effective. You can be playing some powerful cards and getting to use them 2, 3, maybe even more times in one great big turn if you can deck build and get the right energy in the right place. You're trying to send his clones to the era that they came from to get rid of them entirely. And the game comes with loads of missions that all have difficulty levels as well. So you can play the game in increasingly more complex ways as the scenarios add these extra and different rules. They are more complex, but they're also very different as well. And each of those has difficulty levels that if you are finding that one particularly easy, but you really like a particular element of it, like the mega clones, then you can make it harder and harder for yourself as well. It echoes a bit of the quirky feeling. It's got that kind of quirky, unique feeling. Well, it shares a unique feeling with something else. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Of another of Maxime's designs, The Big Book of Madness. I'd like to play through that one day. It's really cool. But yeah, it's completely its own thing. It's got loads of stuff for it. If you end up enjoying it, I would highly recommend checking out The Loop. So there we go. 10 more fantastic games from 2021. I said it in the first part, maybe I said it at the beginning of this part. 2021 was a pretty fantastic year for the kind of games that I like, and it was really hard deciding between things that would end up on these lists. That's partly the reason for doing 20 instead of 10. But yes, thank you very much for watching anything that I have done throughout this year and spreading the word and subscribing and all of that stuff. Any of the things that you have done, thank you very much. If you would like to help support me on Patreon, patreon.com/slickerdrips, or there is a link for a Ko-fi if you'd like to chuck us a tip, if you'd like to buy us a coffee. There's a link for that as well. If you wouldn't like to do those things, that's fine. The video is here. You have seen it at this point, or skip to this point. Thank you very much for doing that as well. But yes, thank you so much, patrons and donors, for basically allowing this year to happen and for me to make any of these videos. I think they've been great. I think there's been some great strides made this year, as well as a lot of playthroughs. Hopefully bigger and better and more things in 2022. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.